Over the past month or so, multiple states have been the site of anti-lockdown protests, and thanks to the wonder of opt-in cell phone apps that track your location and map that information, scientists have been able to show that people attending these lockdown protests in multiple states afterward dispersed all over the state, and indeed to other states as well, raising concerns that if coronavirus were to spread at these protests, which are largely marked by a lack of social distancing and people who are loath to wear face masks, it could infect people in a very wide area. So let's talk about what they found. Cell phone location data suggests that demonstrators at anti-lockdown protests, some of which have been connected with COVID-19 cases. We've talked in Wisconsin about people who were infected with coronavirus as a result of going to these, are often traveling hundreds of miles to events, returning to all parts of their states, and even crossing into neighboring ones. One visualization they put together shows that in Lansing, Michigan, after a April 30th protest in which armed protesters stormed the Capitol building and state police were forced to physically block access to Governor Gretchen Whitmer, devices which had been present at the protest site can be seen returning to all parts of the state, from Detroit to remote towns in the state's north. One device visible in the data traveled to and from Afton, which is over 180 miles from the Capitol. Others reached, and some crossed, the Indiana border. You've got, in the 48 hours following an April 19th Operation Gridlock protest in Denver, devices reached the borders of neighboring states, including Wyoming, Nebraska, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Utah. In Florida, in the middle of April, devices returned to all parts of the peninsula and up to the Georgia border. So if you think for 1 second that the people going to these protests are at all concerned that they, in being exposed to coronavirus, might transmit that to other areas, lay those concerns to rest, because they are going all over the place, and people are traveling far and wide to attend these protests and then returning to their homes and theoretically introducing something along with it.
And ironically, potentially returning to places that do not have the medical care that they desperately need. We know that rural hospitals have been systematically closing over the last decades, right? People, they probably have to travel as far to see a doctor. I mean, this is the pathology of Trumpism and voting against your own interests and keeping Fox News on 24/7. It will get you sick. You are already sick with a virus and you just don't know it. You are so indoctrinated. I'm sure they're listening to AM radio that entire drive. But again, and I do think this is why Democrats and progressives and people on the left really cannot give up, even though it's painful, but the fight for rural areas. It's it's not, these aren't folks necessarily from the cities. They're in the rural areas and they actually have their own struggles. They just have no way of understanding the world around them.
Yeah. I'm just so worried about how it's going to spread. And I wonder if the idea is that they're going into areas that hypothetically might not have already had outbreaks of COVID-19. Like you say, maybe the testing infrastructure isn't actually there. So will we know immediately? I mean, at some point we'll know. If people start turning up dead, those numbers, excess deaths, will show up. But will we know? I mean, we're already seeing some indication. Texas had its single highest day increase in coronavirus cases just recently. I'm not ready to immediately say that's a result of the reopening, because they are also doing more testing in Texas. It is possible that they are just catching more cases rather than having more cases. But what you can't fake, I guess, well, you can try. What you can't fake is the death number. So if we see the numbers in Georgia and Texas and Kentucky and states like that starting to go up, that's going to be hard to deny. Georgia got in some trouble over the weekend. They had apparently been doing some data visualization of coronavirus cases, and they were moving around the numbers in non-chronological order to make it look like the numbers were going down when they were not going down. It's ridiculous, but they were trying. They did get caught, so hopefully they won't be doing that in the future. But yeah, I'm really concerned about where this is going to go. The lack of seriousness every day. We're going to hit 100,000 dead Americans this week. 100,000. Yep. You're probably going to hear very little about it. If you're a conservative and you watch Fox News or, listen to Ben Shapiro or go to Breitbart or whatever, you're probably not even going to know that it's happened. And if you do, you're certainly not going to believe that it's true. Can I say one other thing? So we did a story about, I think it was a woman. She was protesting the fact that she had to wear a mask somewhere. I don't remember exactly where it was. And it was news that she was quarantining because she was experiencing coronavirus symptoms. So like the big news was, hey, this like huge Trump supporter had been saying it's all a hoax, and then now she's actually got it. So that news went out, and that was like a week ago, and it seemed like everyone just moved on and forgot that she existed. So yesterday, I went back to her Facebook page, and I will assure you, she has learned absolutely nothing from the experience. By the way, no one on Facebook tweets as much information, or posts as much information, or just posts in one day as this individual. Just nonstop conspiracy theories about it still being a hoax, still being made up. Like she believed that she had been exposed to it, and within a day or two, she went right back to spreading misinformation and implying that masks are some sort of hoax, that we shouldn't have to do it. It was about Bill Gates and 5G and all that stuff. Some people will never learn. Hopefully they'll be protected.
She will sacrifice herself for her God.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.